Alright, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Character Breakdown podcast. And this week we got a very special episode. We will be looking at one of my personal favorite characters, Rin from Art of Kwong's The Poppy War series. For anyone who has not seen any of my character breakdowns, the way we do them is we will go through each book the character appears in, break down their character arc for that specific book, and then we will, at the end, go through a summary of their general character arc and how I feel about it, if it worked, if it didn't work. So, with all that out of the way, let's jump into the character breakdown. The series starts off with us meeting Rin, who is a small shop girl who is working in a small shop in the southern town of Takani in Rooster Province for her adopted family, the Fongs. The Fongs are very big in the town's opium trade, and they use Rin as an opium runner, so they are very abusive to her and only really see her as a servant. And this comes to a head when they set her up with an arranged marriage with one of the town's local bureaucratic figures to try and gain control of him. As you would suspect, Rin is really not enthusiastic about being part of an arranged marriage, so she strikes a deal with the Fongs. If she can take this test called the Kuju and test into the prestigious military academy of Sinigard, she can go to Sinigard and forget all about her life in Takani. If she can't, she has to go ahead with the arranged marriage. Through her hard work and perseverance and pushing herself to the very limits of her abilities, she is able to get the highest test in the province and test into Sinigard, leave Takani, and leave her old life behind. And this is really where her character arc starts. Once she actually gets into Sinigard, she is treated as this country bumpkin because everyone looks down on her because she is from the south of the country, and using her determination that got her into the school in the first place, she's able to push herself to be like second only to another character, Nezo, who becomes a very important character for her later on. But she is able to push herself to the maximum she can do and is able to prove herself as being worthy to study at Sinigard and continue her education, and that it wasn't a fluke that she was able to get such a high score on that test, and that it was all her own hard work and her own determination to get out of her situation. But this is also where we see a very important part of her character, and that is her need to feel like she belongs somewhere and that she is valued. Because there are entire passages in this first book where she's talking about how the validation of her teachers, their praise, is a drug for her, and that she needs to keep pushing herself further and further to get another dose of their validation. And this is going to be a very important part of her character going forward, but keep that in mind. This obsessive part of this personality becomes very evident when she meets Alten and then later finds out that the two of them are the last two Spearleys alive. And I will get into Alten and the importance of his character in a little bit, but it's very important that we understand Rin and Alten's relationship because it very much shapes Rin's character going forward into the series and becomes such an important part of her character. Fast forward a little bit through the book, the first real major battle has happened of the Third Poppy War, and Rin has unleashed her Phoenix abilities for the first time, and then she is brought to the Psych. The Psych are this special ops group of shamans who are the personal assassins of the Empress, but they're now led by Alten, who at that point graduated from Sinigard and now is the commander of the Psych. When Rin joins the Psych, she basically sees Alten as someone who's worthy of following and sees him as a really good leader and someone who can teach her about the Phoenix and how to control it, and she basically sees Alten as a lifeline to the past that she never knew, and someone who can teach her what it is to be a Spearley and what Spear was like before everything happened 20 years ago with the island being completely decimated. And at first, the two of them have a very normal relationship. It might be a little strained because Alten is her commander, but for the most part, their relationship's completely fine. Alten starts slowly introducing her to the Phoenix and trying to teach her how to control it. This comes to a head in chapter 15 when Alten becomes tricked into a false surrender attack, and because of that, he becomes very stressed with being in command of the Psych and trying to figure out how to regain his reputation and everything, that he starts abusing opium, and this is where their relationship becomes very toxic and very abusive, because now Alten is trying to fight off both the Phoenix and its influence on him, and just all the other commanders not respecting him and wanting him to just get out of the way and let them deal with the war, but he's trying to do his best to follow his orders and to win this battle. One of the other things that is said is in the end of chapter 17, Chagon, one of the other members of the Psyche, says that Alten is so used to being praised for being a killer and just following orders blindly that he's not used to being in command, and this is completely new to him. The stress of command and just everything going on right now is pushing Alten to the very edge of his abilities, and he's taking it out on Rin and the other members of the Psyche. But even despite Alten acting abusive, she still loves him and wants him to like her. Slowly throughout the book, Rin has been drip-fed Alten's own personal hatred for the world, particularly for Mugen and the Federation and what they did to the Spearly people. Now Rin has basically become infected by Alten's own hatred, and this comes to a head at the end of the book when she decides to follow him to the Stone Mountain to unleash an army of shamans. Alten's become obsessed with this idea of creating an army of shamans in order to completely decimate the world and take vengeance on the Federation of Mugen for what they did to Spear, and Rin decides to go along with the idea, not understanding that this is a terrible idea and what the consequences might be for unleashing all these shamans all at once. So fast forward to the very end of the book, and Rin is on the island of Spear, and she is at the Temple of the Phoenix, and then she basically allows Alten's hatred to become her own, and then she decides to unleash the full power of the Phoenix, decimating the Muganese island, unleashing the full power of a volcano, and just covering the entire thing with ash. In this first book, we see Rin as this basically obsessed girl who wants to find someone who can take her away from this life that she was living in Katani, and then she becomes obsessed with validation and finding someone who will teach her how to be a strong warrior, and she wants to be led by someone. And that was basically Rin's main arc for the first book, where she wants to get past her old life and find a new life and someone to lead her and allow her to experience this world. And she really didn't care who it was as long as she could get away from her life in the South. So coming into book 2, we find Rin and the Psyche on the run from the Empire and the Empress Sudaji, after Rin finds out the truth that Sudaji and her own government allowed Spear to be destroyed by the Federation as a ploy to win the Second Poppy War. Now, Rin and the Psyche are really pissed about that, and now have decided to find a way to try and kill Sudaji and topple her own government. So the Psyche have teamed up with the Pirate Queen Maul to act as her enforcers to try and gain Maul's support to try and take the fight to Sudaji. This doesn't work out, and they end up running into Yin Visera, Neza's father, and Visera's new Dragon Republic army. He wants to bring democracy to the country, and Rin decides that this is probably her best shot at taking out Daji, so the Psyche decide to join his army. And at first, Visera and Neza convince Rin that she is like an important, integral part of their army because she's basically their most effective weapon. She is the one shaman who can stand up to Daji and her own personal power. So Yin, Visera, and Neza basically feed her a bunch of lies that she is very important to this army and that she will be basically the cornerstone for how they take down Sudaji and create this new republic that Visera has planned. But what Rin does not know is that she is basically a bargaining chip for Yin Visera to use to try and get the support of the West. He knows he can't take Sudaji and her forces on his own, so he needs the power of the West at his back, and the price for that support is that they are going to use Rin as a lab rat to try and understand how shamanism works and how to stop it. After their first assassination attempt fails, Sudaji is able to put a seal on Rin's power and completely cut her off from it, And when this happens, Yin Visor basically has no more use for her and basically throws her as cannon fodder as like a regular soldier. Because the one thing that made her valuable to him is gone, and now he just doesn't care about her anymore. Fast forward a little bit through the book, Rin has made contact with the Hinterlanders, who are Chani and Kara's people. They are able to basically do a soul link between Rin and Kate, who Kate is one of Rin's friends from Synagard who has been by her side since she got to Synagard, and the two became friends. So the two basically soul link, which now allows Rin to basically use Kate as a conduit to gain the Phoenix powers. And this is always something that I have really liked about this book in particular, because now Rin has to lean on the one person who's always been there for her, Kate, in order to use her full power. So the two of them have to work together to regain Rin's access to the Phoenix. Rin eventually gets back to Visera and the army with her reestablished connection to the Phoenix, and then at first it's fine. Visera welcomes her back now that she's useful to him again, but it's quickly found out that Visera has sold her to the Hesperians for their experiments and that she has just been a pawn in all of this. And at the very end, she finally decides, all right, forget this. I'm out of here. I'm going to strike out on my own and do my own thing. I am not going to be commanded by anyone. It is going to be my show entirely. And then she ends up leaving to start her own rebellion against Visera and the invasion of the Hesperians. Throughout this entire second book, Rin has been constantly told that she is just a pawn by everyone around her. And basically, she doesn't believe anyone. She thinks that she is valuable to Visera because she can serve Visera as a military asset. But that completely ends up being false. Because she has the connection to the Phoenix, that's why Visera sells her out to basically secure his own power and to try and find a cure for Neza and his situation that he's got going on. She basically has been blinded by the fact that she wants revenge so bad that she's willing to work with a man who's willing to sell her out in order to secure his own power. By the end of this book, Rin is like, all right, forget this. I'm doing my own thing. I am done taking orders from anyone but myself. And this, I think, is where Rin's obsessive personality is at its worst. Because throughout the entire book, she's seeing visions of Alten, who basically is the manifestation of the seal that Sudaji put inside of her. He's tempting her to basically submit to the seal and basically go into this dreamlike world. And then she is eventually able to realize that Alten was not a good person to her and that he was just using her like everyone else. But it's really interesting that it takes Rin connecting her soul with Kate's in order to basically free her from the seal, and she now has to lean on the one person that actually cared about her to get anything done. So this book, particularly at the end, is where I think Rin kind of pushes her character arc forward a lot, because now she finally realizes that, yeah, she was manipulated by everyone around her and that she needs to get away and do her own thing and become her own person and figure out who she is as a person without anyone commanding her. Alright, so jumping into the final book, which is The Burning God, we find Rin has now joined this southern rebellion against Visera and his whole Dragon Republic army. And now Rin has to deal with political machinations of this other army because no one really respects her because A, she's a woman from the south, and B, she's a Spearly. So everyone just kind of thinks she's a war machine and really good for nothing else. So she works to kind of establish herself as a worthy leader for this rebellion. She's eventually able to do that, but it takes a lot of political maneuvering and her being smart and her kind of making compromises with herself and with the people around her. Even with Rin learning all these like political maneuvers and making allies within the Southern Coalition, it's still not enough. The Southern Coalition decides to betray her because Neza gave them an offer. If they hand over Rin, he will leave the South to be commanded by the Southern Coalition. He will command the North, and the two will have peace. And the Southern Coalition decides to take that deal and hands Rin off to Neza. At the very last second, Sudaji, who Rin had found earlier in the book, intercepts Rin, and the two decide to go to the Chulu Creek to try and free Zhang, who's been there since the Battle of Sinigard in Book 1. So once all three of them are reunited, they decide to head to the wartime capital of the New Dragon Republic, which is the New City, to try and rescue Kate, who has also been captured. They head off to the New City, and this is another very important part for Rin's character arc, as now she fully understands what the Hesperians are capable of, because now the Hesperians have made this basically enclave city that the entire architecture has been changed. They have new buildings. The Hesperian religion has taken over. And now Rin really understands this is a war that if we don't win this war, our culture and our way of life is going to vanish. And then that basically hardens her resolve to win this rebellion and to become its figurehead, because she now understands the scale of what they're facing and what it's going to take to free their country. So, jumping to chapters 16 and 17, this is another big turning point for Rin's character, because now the Hesperians and the Dragon Republic army have hunted them down, and it is a final showdown between Visera and Rin absolutely goes ham on the forces of the Dragon Republic and absolutely decimates them with the help of Zhang and his powers of the menagerie. And we finally get this really cool moment right before Rin kills Visera, where she basically says, I am not your pawn anymore. I will choose my own fate. And that she kills the guy. And it is arguably one of the most satisfying moments, because up until then, Visera had basically been treating her like a dog, like she was nothing to him. But now Rin finally has a taste of vengeance, and it is such a good moment to see her finally confront the man that manipulated her all that time and finally give it to him, and I loved that moment. So after killing Visera, Rin gets back to the Southern Rebellion and finally takes over. She gets rid of all the people that betrayed her, and now she is fully the figurehead of the rebellion. She is its leader, she is its heart, and now she has now become a warlord like the Trifecta were before her, and now she is ready to take this war to its final stages and to free her country, whatever it takes. So the next really important part for Rin's character is when Rinsu and Zhang go to Mount Tianshan to try and revive Raiga, the last member of the Trifecta, in order to gain his power in the fight against the Hesperians and the Dragon Republic. But this really doesn't go well, as after they resurrect Raiga, it's revealed that Raiga was the one who put the deal in place with the Muganese to sell out Spear and to allow them to experiment on the children. And this really, really doesn't sit well with Rin, and she decides that, alright, forget this. Sudaji and the Trifecta have manipulated me for the last time, and then she decides to allow the incoming Hesperian forces to kill the Trifecta once and for all, leaving her as the most powerful shaman. But keep this interaction with the Trifecta in mind, because the way Raiga interacts with the other two becomes very important for her character arc, particularly at the end of the series, and when we get to that point, I will explain why this is important then. After the death of the Trifecta, Rin now realizes that she can control the narrative of how the Trifecta is viewed in her new regime, and she decides that no one is going to remember Raiga or Sudaji. They will remember Zhang because he was kind to her and taught her what it takes to control the Phoenix and introduced her to this world and gave her the power that she now has. But the other two don't matter at all going forward, and they will be forgotten to history. And now she realizes just how much power she truly has as the figurehead and as essentially a god of this new rebellion. So, jumping forward a little bit to the end of the book, chapter 33, Rin has now fully taken power, and now she has gone basically full paranoia mode. She sees shadows in every corner. She's pushing herself to be the leader that the people need her to be, but she's basically gone the way of Altan, and she has fully lost her mind, and she is like seeing shadows and enemies in every corner, which is not helped by the fact that Neza is sending letters to her and she has no idea how they're getting to her. She's just slowly losing her mind through all the stress, and it comes to a head when she hears Venka say something that Neza wrote in a letter, and this sets off warning bells in her head, and she automatically thinks that Venka is a spy. Rin is about to kill Venka in that moment. Before she can kill Venka, Venka sacrifices herself and gets killed because of an assassination attempt that was meant for Rin. So we never really know if Venka was a traitor, but if you ask my opinion, I don't think she was. I think Venka just happened to say this, and I really don't know entirely if she was a spy, but my gut feeling says Venka was not the spy. So, jumping to chapter 34 of the book, Kate, Rin, and Neza meet on Spear for peace talks, but after the Hesperian forces ambush Rin and Kate, Rin freaks out. She begins to access the full power of the Phoenix through Kate. And this is a very, very pivotal moment for Rin's character because she is now thinking about all of the past moments that people could have used the power of the Phoenix to save the world and save everything. And then she is fully willing to sacrifice Kate and their entire relationship in order to unleash the full power of the Phoenix and quote unquote save the world and save her country and become its true sole leader. But remember remember the trifecta. This moment is where the trifecta and their relationship becomes very important because what we learn about with the scene with Raiga is that Raiga used a combination of Sudaji and Zhang's love for him as well as a combination of fear to keep the two in line. And Rin realizes that she is doing the same exact thing for Kate. Kate loves her so much that Kate is not willing to stop her. He's willing to allow her to do this just because he loves her. And it's this moment that Rin realizes that she has become no better than Raiga, and that if she goes along with this, she will still have Kate's loyalty, but it will be tainted by this fear and anger and resentment, just like the trifecta and their relationship, how it soured after the whole thing with Spear. So this is the pivotal moment for Rin's character, and now she decides, no, I am not going to be like Raiga, I'm going to do the right thing, and she allows Neza to kill her and Kate in arguably maybe the most heartbreaking scene of the entire series at the very, very end of The Burning God. Rin's character arc in Burning God is spectacular. She starts off as this warlord who gains power but grows paranoid, but at the very last second realizes that she has become exactly like the people that she has tried to get away from. She is manipulating Kate, manipulating the others. She finally understands where she went wrong, and then she allows herself to die and leaves Neza to pick up the pieces. Final thoughts on Rin and her character arc for this series. Overall, I've again spoken a lot about Rin's character arc in this video, but overall, I think this is a solid character arc. I think it is one of those arcs that is so well written. We see Rin at the start of the series as this lonely shop girl who wants to push past her limits and become something in this world and to get away from her arranged marriage, to the very end of the series where she is a super powerful warlord who has effectively become like the people that she wanted to get away from and that have led her astray. And at the very last second, she turns back and with the help of her friends leaves this world and allows it to continue and leaves it in the hands of Neza, and I so want to return to this series and figure out what Neza does afterward. I think it is so worth following Neza's story after all this, but I love Rin and her character arc. I think it is so well written and very well done, and I love Rin as a character. Thank you so much for listening to the video. It was a blast to go back through the Poppy War series and to kind of relive Rin's character arc, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please do not forget, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you do not miss another episode of The Character Breakdown. So, if you guys have suggestions for characters you want me to do reviews of, feel free to leave those down in the comments and I'll check them out. So, if you guys want to follow me on social media, my Instagram, TikTok are on book reviews. I will link everything down in the comments, but check those out for more content that is not up on the channel, particularly my TikTok. I will see you guys next episode. Till then, keep on reading.